All right. Now, the inflationary gap monetary policy, we're going to start with short-run equilibrium to the right of full employment, showing we've overproduced, we're making too much GDP, burning up resources, and we have inflation. So what we want to do as a Federal Reserve tool is our goal would be to decrease the money supply, making money more expensive. That's the idea of it. So with the reserve ratio, what we want to do is we want to raise that so that makes banks keep more required reserves in their vaults. They have less excess reserves to loan out, and therefore multiple deposit expansion doesn't let the money supply increase as much as it should. The open market operation we want to engage in would be to sell bonds, and that's going to make small bucks. So when banks engage in open market operations, the Federal Reserve has the Open Market Committee, and they decide how much money worth of bonds to issue or sell to the banks. So when they sell the bond to the bank gives them the money, and the Federal Reserve takes that money and puts it back in the Federal Reserve, separating it from the money supply. So that's why the money supply ends up being smaller when we sell bonds and make small bucks. When the money supply shrinks, that's going to make interest rates go down, and that's the whole idea, is to make the interest rates go down. So we can see that on the money supply graph with this move right here. So the only things that shift the money supply graph are going to be changing the reserve ratio and open market operations. The discount rate and the Fed funds rate aren't going to do that. Those are just targets for interest rates. So when people go to buy houses or cars or anything else like that, the bankers will say, oh, well, that's 0.1% above prime. So the prime rate is based on the discount rate and the Fed funds rate. Because banks borrow from each other all the time, and banks can't gouge each other if the Federal Reserve says, nope, it's 0%. So you can profit off of that, but you're not going to profit off the other banks and hurt each other. And so with the discount rate, they would want to raise that. And with the Fed funds rate, they want to raise that as also. Okay, oh, and that should have been an up arrow for interest rate, sorry. So if I look at the money supply graph, all these things that reduce the money supply or shift it to the left, just like Beyonce wants, everything to the left, right? Yeah, sorry, it's bad. So we want to reduce the money supply, which we can see if the same amount of demand, it's going to raise the interest rates or the price, because supply and demand is about prices, isn't it? Now, if we have high interest rates, that's going to make investment go down. So just thinking back to Sig X, the one that's been around all year, if investment decreases, then aggregate demand is going to decrease. And that's our goal on our inflationary gap. We want to reduce aggregate demand to the left. We have our left shift arrow, and where it crosses, we're going to have our new long-run equilibrium. So I can see that price levels are going to drop, which is inflation, and that's what we want. Unfortunately, it's going to cost us some GDP. And so when we shift back to full employment equilibrium, a reduction in GDP is gross domestic product. If we're not at work producing products, then we're unemployed. So our results that we get is aggregate demand is going to shift to the left or decrease, price level is going to go down, GDP is going to go down, the unemployment rate is going to increase, but inflation is going to decrease, and that's what we wanted. And this was all a result of the interest rate, the nominal interest rate, increasing. So did we get our result we wanted of inflation decreasing? Yes, we did. Did we get our result over here of unemployment decreasing? Yes, we did. So let me zoom out a little bit, so that way at the end, when you're done, you can look at these and see what they all look like.